horse drifted alarmingly in the betting, was, fell in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's not.
It's heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Big welcome to the Sunday sermon. This is the Christmas special. This is the one you don't want to miss. And what a show we've got in prospect for you. And joining me to chew the fat over the year's events, the COTYs of 2022, lots of other things like Ronan, McNally, Henderson, lots of rubbish, is John Lang. Good afternoon, John Lang.
Good afternoon, Lee.
Yes. Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lee.
And last but not least is professional punter and absolutely, he loves life, Dave Greenwood.
Good afternoon, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas. And it's a shame they decided to race today at Thurles. The first thing we'll talk about, folks, is retirements. We'll go about retirements and get them out of the way. And obviously the famous one we'll leave to last. But there was an interesting one at Thurles this afternoon where good old Davy Russell, brilliant 58 winning Grade 1 jockey, I believe, he decided to hang up his boots in front of his family and friends and got all the high fives from the jocks after the race when he won the mare's hurdle race this afternoon. And it was a bit of a shock because he announced it literally straight after the race. Everyone seemed to know in the weighing room, and everybody else, well, other people in the know, that forced his horse into favourite the night before. And then you could kind of see why after the race, as Rachel Blackmore decided to hold hers up in last. And then you'd got the original, well, the market leader this morning then drifted to second fav. And that gave it 6 or 7 start at the tapes. Go on there, Davey. Davey Greenwood, is that the done thing these days, that jockeys retire and they give them an easy?
It's been the done thing for all time, hasn't it? 20, 25 years. I can think of nearly every big name jockey. They seem to go out on a winner, and he sort of followed in Ruby Walsh's steps, because I think everybody knew Ruby was retiring, and he jumped off one and said, that's it, I've had enough. And you got all the stories, nobody knew, but I think plenty of people knew because all the family were there, the kids were there. It's the done thing, isn't it? He's 43 years old. He's been through hell and back really with injuries, and they wouldn't have wanted him to see him go out without him going out on a nice big winner. So I think it is the done thing. It's just a shame I didn't know anything about it.
Yep, same here.
What are you suggesting? I mean, what are we suggesting here? That somehow it was a contrived result?
Well, it's just
scurrilous.
It's just lucky how they choose these these last mounts so well that they all managed to win.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. Yes. If they'd only applied that sort of skill, they'd never ride a loser, would they, really? It's bizarre.
No.
But there you go. Good luck, Davey. Hope you have a nice Christmas. Yeah.
No, fuck Davey. He cost me loads. I was on the eventual... Well, I did the second horse as well. I just felt that the Davey horse was, well, a ridiculous price, really. Having considered it finished behind the eventual third today at Down Royal, quite comfortably behind it, and yeah. So
what price would you have really had you known it was going to be his last ride?
Exactly.
10 on.
Well, put it this way, I wouldn't have had a bet, and I think that's the annoying thing from my perspective. When people say, well, if they'd have said this is Davy Russell's last ride, would I have bet in the race? No, is the answer. I mean, I'd probably wait for him running or whatever. But
you have a model of restraint. An oak.
Yeah, it literally is a race to avoid if you know that's the case. And it's rare. To be honest, it's quite rare. Jockeys do that. Sort of like Garner. They usually say, "Oh, this is my last ride," or whatever. This is, announce it to the press. Yeah, I'm finishing today. Unlike a certain sardine that's decided to announce it a year before he's going to retire. So this chap's is going to give us a bit of a boring headache all next year. We're going to have to listen to the racing media fall on for a full year about, yes, arguably one of the better flat jockeys we've seen on a race course in history. I'm not saying that anything like the best, but one of the better. Yeah. But the problem is now he goes to Royal Ascot. It's going to be Frankie's Ascot. It's going to be every single major meeting. Oh, it's his last glorious Goodwood. Oh, it's his last Arc ride. Oh, it's his it's his last ride in the Derby. It's just going to be like just a bit of a snooze fest, to be honest.
He won't be missed in the Derby, will he?
No, not really. No, certainly not.
Not there.
Yeah, but this is what we're going to get, and it's some people find it a bit nauseating. Other people have said on Twitter, reading some comments, that why not? Why not give him a big old farewell? But if any of us have been Dottore, would we have been saying a year before we're going to retire, I'm retiring? Would we? What would we?
If you've got a massive ego, you would. If you've got a huge ego, you would. It's like Frank Sinatra, isn't it? It's sort of final farewell tour. Yeah, I mean, he has a huge ego, though, Dottore, doesn't he, by all accounts? So, yeah, I guess the sort of personality he seems to be, yeah, why not?
Well, Piggott said 85 was going to be his last season, didn't he? Didn't he announce it just at the very start of the season?
Yeah. So, look, I mean, it wouldn't be my thing to do in this day and age, because at the end of the day, it's, I just think it's because he's so popular in the media that the media are just going to be riddled with it. It's a bit like when Cheltenham Festival, it's like it's all you get. Cheltenham Festival.
What price in joining the ITV team then got it?
Oh, short price.
101.
It would be boring though, won't it? I mean, you can sort of imagine every meeting will be the story. Oh, this is his last fucking Northumberland plate or whatever. It's going to be tedious because you've got a whole year of this whimsy that the ITV will create around this sort of farewell tour. It's going to be horrible, I think.
Yeah. Now, I think we're in agreement there. Well, Dave's quite on this one. Dave loves Dottore.
Probably make a documentary, following him round all year.
Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix. There you are.
I actually never thought of that. That's actually a good point. Yeah. So you get something like it's like you say, get a Netflix deal.
Yeah.
And following him around, final year, make plenty off that. Well, why not? Good luck, we'll add on that if that's his thinking. But okay, we'll move on. So this week then, events. There's obviously a lot of abandonments with cold weather, and that's surprisingly to some caused abandonments on the all weather, and much to people's sort of mirth and how can you call it all weather when we get down to sort of -5, -6. That's too cold to be able to race, and there's too much frost in the tracks. Any thoughts on the words all weather, and is there anything that we could be doing to get the all weather racing on? Is it a time for maybe all weather tracks to cover their tracks, like the turf tracks?
No.
Let's have it in the afternoon. These evening meetings, that would be a good start. I think Chelmsford they lost a meeting that was due to start 5:30. Everybody got there. Yes, we passed through inspections. Kempton had the fog, and there wasn't any fog all afternoon. So you've just got to be a little bit more proactive when people are getting paid a lot of money for this race planning. Nothing seems to happen. It's the same story. Let's be a little bit more inventive and start moving things around to get it on. Also, with the low sun, you could do the same.
Shit anyway at this time of year.
The thing for me though, Wolverhampton and Kempton have both got lakes in middle, so that's part of the issue. Where naturally that's where the fog for that you can see that's when the temperature drops. That's when the mist starts and everything from the middle of the track where the lake is. So like Dave says, all you got to do here is think, right, well, lake tracks then, at this time when it's cold weather, we're going to have to switch the times. I mean, they did it for Chelmsford on Saturday for the rescheduled meeting. They moved the times of the races, so it's possible to do on a daily basis. But I wonder if our dear old enemy, the big court bookmakers that have been the scourge and the destruction of British racing over the last decade. I mean, they're trying to get racing on from 10 o'clock in the morning until 8:30 at night without any thought whatsoever for, well, is this logistically the right thing to do? And we've talked before about dolling off of fences. Why don't we just run the chase races when the sun's high in the sky? I.e. earlier would be sort of around mid. So you have the first two races of the day chase races. It's a thing that I find amazingly simple to sort of try and work out, but yet racing doesn't seem to be able to or ever able to.
I mean, you can see why those meetings were abandoned, and this time of year, it has been extraordinarily cold. But, I'm a simpleton, so I'm in the camp of all weather is surely all weather. So either the surfaces aren't being prepared properly, or the surface isn't performing as the manufacturers have sort of intended. But it does seem to be every week there's some sort of abandonment or something's gone wrong, and it, racing doesn't seem hugely bothered. I think as Dave said, more invention is required to rectify it, and it is being run like a gymkhana. And look, listen, when the sort of the months roll past, we won't remember this, but they don't seem to be getting much right at the moment, and it's it just adds to the idea that it's a sport generally in decline.
Indeed, Big Corp and ARC and all the stakeholders really need to analyse things, because as we've read this week as well, that after the gambling review hasn't taken place yet. Still waiting on the white paper, which hasn't been delivered as of yet. I'm told it's going to be early in the new year, but I was told several times it's going to be this month, that month. So I wouldn't pay any attention whatsoever into when the gambling review is going to be officially published. Now, Bookmakers turnover, chaps, reportedly are £800 million down on the year, predominantly. Obviously, cost of living might have an effect, but also they're saying that it's affordability checks that are causing the mass drop in turnover, which is about 20% down. That's worth about 40 million to racing in terms of lost turnover. So when are the bookmakers going to start fighting back against this? Why are they not fighting back against the Gambling Commission? Why don't they care? Remember the FOBT crisis, where they were screaming, say it would cost jobs, people were going to lose their livelihoods, staff will lose their jobs, and it's going to be turmoil, cutting the FOBT stakes, right? So why aren't they kicking off to the Gambling Commission here about affordability? Why are they in bed with them on it? Why are they having the Gambling Commission round demonstrating the software they're going to be using to spot people that suffer potential gambling harm? When this is very strange, because as we know, they can spot winners in 5 seconds. Why can't they spot people, struggling with gambling and in stum in the same amount of time? Why does it take these affordability checks, so-called, where you have to produce statements and identification galore, assets, investments, to be able to place a bet on a horse race? Makes absolutely no sense.
What is the 800 million drop as a percentage of the total turnover?
I think it's 20%.
Now, I think we could be just about in the territory where the Gambling Commission view that as a win. They've ceased to enable problem gamblers, right? And the bookmakers might have eradicated some non-profitable accounts.
Yes.
Therefore, ergo, they might also view this as a win. I don't think we're in the territory where the bookmakers are going to be kicking off just yet.
No, it is odd though, isn't it? I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know whether you saw the Racing Post ran a series of articles with punters to see what effect the restrictions and all the sort of the additional requirements to provide information has had on their betting. And there's quite a few people who said, look, if this carries on, I'm going to turn the game up. So maybe they've underestimated the extent to which people will with these new regulations. We've said before, I wouldn't, you'd either give up or you'd find an unregulated way of getting a bet on, because, why should you have to send in personal documents? You're having a bet. You're not buying a house or a business. You're having a bet for pleasure. So I think there's more people than they anticipate will just walk away from it. I really do, because I wouldn't do it.
The bit I don't understand is there's already tools on site for gamblers with harm to use. Self-exclude. Yeah. You can, there's lots of things you can do, and I'm not saying that they're all not totally useless. There might be some that are totally useless, and people can get around them. People that suffer from. I'm not saying they're perfect, but there are tools to help you. And I love these slogans like "Be gamble aware." There's lots of slogans they use that kind of say be careful. Now, if you suffer from a gambling problem, gambling addiction, and you are betting on fruit machines and doing whatever, just betting 24/7 and doing it all in, right? then why are you going to listen to any of these slogans? What are these slogans actually doing? Because the people that don't have a problem won't even look at them anyway, and the people that do have a problem with it won't look at them either.
I mean,
they're not going to stop, are they?
No, I mean, when you prohibit something that there is a widespread demand for, people will always find a way to indulge their hobby, their addiction, or whatever. I mean, drugs are illegal. Does that mean there's no drugs around? The countries are awash with it. And when you get a kind of a prohibition type regime, organised crime or unregulated entities step in really quickly because they're well resourced, they're nimble, and they're unfettered by regulation. So, if this continues down the path that we anticipate, you'll get loads of offshore WhatsApp type betting groups that are prepared to accommodate people. And you've seen it with drugs, etc. You've seen it with lots of other things. It will happen. And I think these people making the rules are in an ivory tower. They're not punters. We've said that before. They don't understand the mindset of people having a bet. They only look at that tiny percentage that, fuck their lives up through betting.
So that comes onto the BHA then, right? So listen. So the BHA, whilst are pretty, I wouldn't say totally powerless, but they don't have much power on this sort of jurisdiction. However, and there is a big however, they've made a mission statement this week saying how they're going to change racing for the better and how they're going to improve things. And the BHA have basically made this mission statement, and they've hardly mentioned, in fact, they haven't mentioned the words punter, bettor. They've used the word customer, right? So they haven't used they haven't used the word punter. It's now customer in racing, and they've basically said absolutely nothing at how they're going to make the game better for punters. As in, there's all this shit show going on around where people can't get a bet on the band. They can't get bets on with bookmakers anymore. It's all finished. Even on betting exchanges and stuff like that, you're not allowed to. You've got to produce the same documentation, and yet the BHA have not made one defence or help for, I'll use their words, customer or punter. And so much so that I tweeted on it this week, and the BHA took great offence, saying my tweet was inaccurate, saying that they did mention the word betting. Yes, they mentioned the word betting, right? But if you read it, they actually mentioned the word that basically they're going to liaise with the bookmakers to bookmakers' data, so the data that they get off you as a customer, to basically maximise racing's profit. That's their mission statement. Yes, it's there. It's in there, right? And the BHA got in touch with me because they were unhappy with my tweet and they wanted me to take it down, which I refused. And there was some dialogue between me and the BHA, which obviously I'm not going to publish, but at the same time, it kind of explains to me why the BHA are useless as an organisation. Rather than debate the point about how serious a situation racing's in, they'd rather attack me for highlighting their deficiencies. They don't like it. They were playing on semantics and technicalities. That they did mention the word betting, but they mentioned the word betting on how to maximise the profits for the levy, which I do get. I do understand, but it's just the way it's done. We're going to use data. There you go, punters. That's what they're going to do. They're not interested whether you get a bet on or not. They're not even fighting your corner saying, well, we as an organisation think this is terrible because we want more betting turnover in our sport. Like Chris has said on previous shows, betting is a dirty word. And this chap's, I find it, again, you can see now what the likes of Ronan, McNally, Dave Greenwood, you yourself have fallen foul with the BHA, with a lengthy ban. Is that up now, by the way? That's finished now, isn't it?
No, next year. But I was just going to say, Lee, a couple of things. We've got lots of problems heading into the new year. The first one is these anti-gambling lobbyists are extremely well funded, and a lot of their funding is actually coming from the Gambling Commission, handing it across to them. And there's very little transparency to actually how much money and where it is going from the Gambling Commission. I certainly couldn't find the figures. So that's really arming the opponents to racing, which is and gambling, because if you cut down on gambling to too much of an extent, what will happen is horse racing will have to suffer. Tracks will close. People will lose jobs. And, the biggest problem is, all the bookmakers seem to be saying is, we can't have all these limits because that'll force people to the black market. And the Racing Post, they're saying, we can't have that. Well, the problem is these bookmakers had no thoughts to that when they were closing winners' accounts, that they were forcing the winners across the black market. So I have very little sympathy with that. But we've got to really get a handle on it, because there are so many people I speak to every single day who are just sick and tired of having to produce document after document. And I saw on Twitter people being asked for notarized documents for a £31 withdrawal from 888 Sport, which, you know, is a big bookmaker now. I think they own William Hill. You just can't carry on like this.
No,
it's nonsense.
I mean,
it is absurd, isn't it?
Notarized documents cost money, cost good money. How much does it cost to basically do this? It's not cheap,
More
is it?
More than 30 quid.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sure I've read it's 80 quid.
Yeah. And if this is the legalized, if this is the legalized bookmakers from the Gambling Commission, then why aren't people going to look elsewhere? The whole of America survived betting illegally, in inverted commas, for you know, decades. There's still plenty of states where you still can't gamble legally. So, you know, how bad would it be for people? You know, generally reputations will decide of how the black market gets on. The only loser to the black market will be racing finances, but they don't want to educate punters. Therefore, punters won't want to gamble. You can't even get going descriptions for nearly all of the tracks on Boxing Day, which isn't that far away. There's no, you know, there's nothing to look at. I don't know what the official going description's going to be. So it's very hard, I suppose, for trainers to make plans. Then you get the small fields. It's just a complete mess. The whole of racing from top to bottom is in a mess. There's a huge disaster looming, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. But there's a lot of people earning a lot of money out of the sport who are very quiet.
Indeed. Yeah. And John Lang.
Total lack of leadership. Yeah.
John Lang, you know, since we started this pod for mental health reasons, you know, just to keep us heads in the game, all that time ago, you've been saying about the BHA for a long, long time. And
the gross profits tax, Dale Lay, was the biggest mistake racing has ever made. And I stand by that, because the minute that the regulatory body in racing gets into bed with the bookmakers and the racing's finances becomes dependent on followers of the sport losing money, it's not on. It's immoral.
It is, and you imagine these meetings. So the BHA, Julie Harrington, etc., sit down with all the stakeholders.
A levy on turnover is a sport that you can promote, and it's vibrant, and you're looking to increase turnover. Fine.
Yeah.
The minute you're getting to putting your hands in punters' pockets, analysing data and framing races in order to be more profitable for the bookmakers, that's why they're analysing data. They want to know what are the races where we have half a chance, and they want rid of them.
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's morally reprehensible. The government should be stepping in, but they should be really taking people to task over how they're running this sport. That's why they should be stepping in. Nothing to do with problem gambling. This sport is on the verge of being utterly corrupt.
Yeah, we're in a lot of trouble, and we've said it on this show for a long time. We tried to combat suggestions, you know, of affordability checks. We've tried to write articles, do pods on it. No one listens. Well, no one of any interest listens. And the BHA themselves, for me, could do a lot more in terms of the way they handle the sport and look after the customer. Not a case of try and fleece them, which is in the mission statement, by using data to make it more profitable, which is only, like John says, because of the levy deal, is only going to make it more profitable for bookmakers as well in the process. Everyone needs them. Bookmakers need punters. Punters need bookmakers. Everyone needs to thrive. You know, but the way it's done right now suits Big Corp, who are less and less interested in the UK markets because they've got bigger fish to fry abroad. So I'm more than happy to run down their racing sort of profits, if you like, in terms of what they can fleece the UK market for. Let's be right here. The big books like Entain, Flutter, and Port Vale, all they want is £5-10 punters, and that's it. Doing the brain, hackers, lads, down the pub, you know, tenner on. They don't. The old days of laying huge bets, other than to complete rich wagons. They're not interested anymore. They've They've took the ball in, and that's it. And that's what we're left with. So, and we've got an arbiter of the sport that's just also not interested in its customers either. Right, we move on.
Just before,
sorry,
Lee, just before you move on, without sort of betraying that confidence in terms of the private message that the BHA sent you, I mean, the language and the general tone summed them up for me. I mean, you sent it to me, and it was hugely defensive, and you absolutely can read the corporate mindset from the terminology they use. It was about, that you're wrong, you haven't understood it. There was nothing in there that said, look, we are behind punters. This is where we said, this is what we're doing. It was simply an exercise, as you said, in semantics, and sort of correcting your English and correcting your ability to read their strategy document. And that sums it up. And it sums
it does, yeah. I am shit
It's
at
bizarre.
that.
And that speaks to how they view it. Was almost disdainful, wasn't it? It was sort of say, how dare you piece of shit punter question us?
Yes,
we invite you to, and that tells you everything you need to know. You can guess what's in their mind. Unfortunately, it's very sad because they
it is. It's very old school headmaster with his cane bashing the desk as he says, you will do as what we say, as if they've got the power, because there was nothing wrong with it legally apart from it's, according to them, inaccurate. But it's a case of they were basically saying to me, you take this down, and I just refused. I'm not taking it down. There you go. This is where we're at, and they're a terrible organisation, and I'll say it live on the show. Terrible, not fit for purpose, the same as the Gambling Commission. A waste of time. And talking of a waste of time, more Nicky Henderson nonsense recently, which Wibble, wobble. It appears old chemical Nicky at Seven Barrows appears to just be going down the old fruit bar route. I read an interview that he did the other day with someone, and I was laughing my head off. He said it's not possible to run a horse at the Dublin, a UK horse at the Dublin Racing Festival, as they're going to have a hard race, and they're not going to come right for Cheltenham. It's too close to Cheltenham. But then in another breath, so then he was put to it that the Irish runners that run at the Dublin Racing Festival are very successful, and they come out at Cheltenham and win no problem. He said, yes, but they have easy races. So why would his horse that he sends over to have a hard race, but the Irish horses that run in those races at Dublin Racing Festival have easy races? I've tried to work that one out. Anyway, just some stats for Nicky here. That at the Dublin Racing Festival, there have been 32 Cheltenham Festival winners that won at the Dublin Racing Festival, so must have had a fairly hard race, you'd think, most of the time. I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time they'd have had hard races. 32 winners, 21% strike rate, and you make 42 quid at SP, industry SP, not Betfair SP. So, yeah, it looks like they really have an hard. It really jeopardises the chances of winning at the Cheltenham Fez. So, what do we think, chaps, to Nicky? He's losing it, isn't he?
Yes.
His comments are more disturbing by the week. He's, with the ground on Constitution Hill, and he said Constitution Hill's only going to have one more run apparently at Christmas, and that'd be it. And then till Cheltenham, it's like utter bore fest. You have an horse of that ability, and it's like Henrietta Knight all over again. As soon as they got best mate, he kind of just, as soon as they knew it was pretty good, they just started to wrap him in cotton wool.
He's never challenged on it, with a few notable exceptions in the press, because racing is a feudal system, isn't it? We've said this before ad nauseum. You have at the top, you have the Lord of the Manor, and then you have this pyramid. And if you want to be part of racing and you want to earn a living there, you've got to respect the hierarchy. Whereas in, say, football, they call people out all the time, but not in racing. And that's the problem. The established hierarchy is never challenged.
That's right. I'm with Mark Johnson. He didn't speak to Racing TV, I think, for 2 years. That might have been Lydia as well. I don't know who it was. I think it was somebody that upset him. A trainer, once comments are posted or made on a racing channel, they don't half get upset and take themselves seriously. This is the thing. I mean, Stuart Williams recently has come with some criticism on Twitter from various punters and
friend of the show. He's landed two gambles recently, two very notable ones. Our barge at Southall.
He didn't know anything about that one, like.
Funnily enough, though, he texted me both of them, but I forgot to send it on to you boys. Sorry about that. It's really disappointing, but thanks,
Yeah.
Stuart.
I know, Stuart, you absolute bastard, because, you know, I need a winner right now. You could have just said, look, don't take the prize. Don't go in and spoil it for everyone. I wouldn't have done. I'd have just waited, but you didn't, did you?
I wouldn't have waited. He knows I'm an absolute.
Yeah, gone round the shops, fucked it all
but
up.
I mean, there's some punters like that are on our threads that are wanting to kick off on this. But Dave Greenwood, isn't this just a normal part of the game where a trainer gets a horse handicapped, they back them, they hammer them, knock them off the boards? And yeah, there's a bit of falsehood when they say, I haven't backed it, not my money. I mean, they always say that, don't they?
Of course they do, Lee. And this is what annoys me. You know, this is why education comes into the game so much. If you actually study a race and you look at a Stuart Williams lightly raced horse, then you've got to be wary that there could be money. You should be studying the markets, and when the money actually comes, join in.
There was a funny comment from a bookmaker online as well regarding the one that won at, was it Lingfield, Hubert something, the first one. Yeah, Hubert's Dream. That was like absolutely hammered. And he said to another bookmaker, he said, no, you don't play with that firm. He says because if you start playing with that firm when money's down, he says they'll take your lunch money off you as well. You'll have nothing for dinner. They'll take the lot.
Yeah, I agree with Dave though, and you've said this before, Lee, with Ronan McNally's. You know, the best price is any price with some of these firms. You know, any price at all. You know, because certainly with Ronan McNally's got so much in hand. You know, evens isn't value in this handicap. Yeah, it is, because it's a 20 on chance.
Ronan gets down to actual price, which is no offers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, studying Ronan, when his horses go off fav, it's something remarkable. He's got about a 70% strike rate.
Yeah.
And
follow them in.
He's a punter's friend in a way. Like you say, I know punters complain and say, well, that's not how to play the game. But as punter, if you gain experience, if you see a Ronan McNally runner and it's priced up at 10s in the morning, it's a race you can't play till late. Because that Ronan McNally horse will either be 150s or it'll be
evens.
Yeah. Which and if it's evens, it's still a good price because you know
exactly.
That's how it works. That's how the game is. You can scream house down and say, well, that's ridiculous. But if you have a system where you're handicapping horses and you are gonna play the system, if you don't, you end up being a crap trainer because you've not got horses well enough handicapped to win races. And I do think some of that applies to a former trainer of mine, Brian Ellison, who isn't a bad trainer, but I just think his horses are just too ridden too honestly. Like, and that sounds terrible, but like to say, well, it's honest, But that's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game. You need £10 or £15 going into a handicap first time because horses will need experience and so on and so on. So to me, look, people complaining about it and wanting us to, I get it. Strokes are strokes, but that's where we're at in the game itself. If the prize money was a lot better, and I mean, like Australia are doing $1 million race every 4 days or something in 2023, that's just ludicrous. But like I say, if prize money was just better across the board, and you could actually balance the books from just prize money alone before betting by winning races, then I'm sure the temptation would be to forgo betting and just concentrate on making the horse as good as it can be and sell it. But look, I think to punters that are moaning about gambles and etc. Ooh, penalty France. It's bad news for Chris.
Fuck's sake. Fucking shit. You are a bok.
I am. I did say we start recording at half time. I did say you've got the money's in the bank, Chris, but I can get anything beat anything right now, and I mean anything. That's why I'm quiet with you, Dave. When we discuss thoughts on racing, I don't say much at the moment because
there's not been much on, has there? But
no.
It's funny. I'm on a few WhatsApp groups with some punters and. One of the horse watchers, horses at Southwell, Jason Watson, looked to have got it up on the line, and all the booms came through. Boom. We've
it was on that as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then, of course, 2 minutes later, the judge is reading out a different number, and everyone's looking round and staring at the floor.
It was the worst nod ever. on the Appleby horse. It was in front before the line. It was in front literally, and you just needed another like a tenth of a stride to be in front. No, it's 2-1. Kylian Mbappe. I should be on livescore.com. Anyway, right, back to the racing with Nicky Henderson and stuff, and Stuart Williams. I mean, Ronan McNally. Dave, what's your opinion with the punishment on Ronan McNally?
Well, it's coming on January the 9th is the hearing date with the penalties, and I expect they'll probably throw the book at him and ban him for years, which is, for me, it's a shame, because he is actually a skilled trainer to do what he's doing. To get horses to win the sequence is an impressive thing. If it was easy, then there would be plenty of other trainers doing it. And when they brought out the judgment and sort of said, "Oh, the handicap has never seen anything like it." Well, Gerard on his icy Twitter, he put up sort of 20 examples in 2 minutes of horses that had gone through the grades from 90. Yeah. I think Flooring Porter sort of 95 up to 160. Brave Inca started about 98. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of examples. Yeah. Ronan's managed to do it with 2. And he's done well, but they will probably throw the book at him, and it'll be a shame, because we actually do need some characters in racing. We're losing one in Frankie Dettori. We lost Oliver Brady, who I thought was a great character when he passed away. You've lost Barney Curley, you've lost John McCreerick. Who's left? I mean, it's just becoming a very boring, dull sort of sport where everything has to be done 100% right. Like you say, even people moaning that Stuart Williams has landed a gamble. That's part of the game. It's always been part of the game. And it gives a little bit of life to the game. Without it, I think it just becomes a lot of horses running around a field, and you sort of lose all the enjoyment of it.
Indeed. I agree with that wholeheartedly, especially because little man. Chris, you're going to hate me. It's 2-2. We have a Desmond.
In the background.
We have a Desmond in the World Cup final.
Almighty.
Oh my God!
Fucking hell! Fucking bok you are. Oh, you can stop clock. Fuck's sake.
2022, get in the bin. Yes, we have a Desmond in the World Cup final. We're recording this for you lot. Be thankful. Right, it's a listener's question now, because it's a good one. It's from Graham North, and it's RE form analysis and tips and stuff. Graham North himself has done a bit of work for Timeform and Sporting Life and other publications. And he said, what areas of racing analysis, do the panel think are still underused or underappreciated by the wider betting public? E.g. stats, sectionals, paddock, jockey form, or something else entirely. Is there anything underused in particular, or maybe overused? I mean, obviously, the obvious ones are the last performance. A lot of punters love a last time out winner, and so on and so on. And it's nice to be able to back horses that had an excuse last time that someone hasn't spotted. Recently, probably in the last 5 years, I've started using weather in terms of, horses that ran into headwinds, or horses that basically had bad trips in terms of where they were positioned on a track, maybe. But to be honest, the game is that good now, I think, competitive wise. I think there are a few variables left, as I see it, where you have, I would call it, a considerable edge. There are ways you can get edges, but it isn't like what it maybe was 10 years ago when the old sectional times came in and stuff, and and people started using them, and you got amazing, like 10 years ago, sectional times, you'd be getting some amazing prices. Now, literally, everyone knows the sectionals, and it's like, it's difficult to build a huge edge. Anything, chaps, that I don't want anyone to give the whole edges away or anything, but is there anything that you see that you think, that's possibly underused, or
I don't know what the fuck is he using.
Well, like, for example, you have like Norman Adams. He does his paddock, but that's just one variable.
That's definitely underused.
It is, and if you know what you're doing. But the only thing with paddock is it's only one.
Get hold of Norman Adams, get hold of him, and use him.
Use him and abuse him. But so there's paddock. It's difficult to say what would be underused or underappreciated these days. Like sectional and time bonds are considered bores at the moment, and I think generally it's like gut feeling. You can tell. Like, another thing I look for is like a horse physically, so you've got like 2-year-old maidens, things like that, and you think, boy, you look way ahead of these in terms of like physicality and just the way you're built. And you just think, well, yeah, that's, and if it either runs well or shapes well or wins, that goes in your notes as like, well, it's definitely better than them because physically it's probably going to grow into something quite useful. So there's little things like that. But again, it comes over time, I think, when you've seen horse after horse. And I'm not as good as, say John would be on Paddock or Adam Norman, etc. But it's still something I do look at now and again, find the odd gem. But Dave, anything that you think's underappreciated or underused in the betting fraternity?
Maybe the only thing I would say is track biases. Sometimes certain parts of the track are just the wrong place to be. More Leicester jumps, for example, that can be big biases. Some of the all-weather tracks can have big biases. You've really got to keep a close eye on what's happening, because the biases can come and go just with the way they harrow the track, and you've really just got to keep on top of it. Sadly, it's like everything. There's no easy answer. It's a lot of hard work, because generally there's an awful lot of racing, and to keep on top of it takes, it's a full-time job. So, I would just do the best I could. I might even try and, if I was sort of working all day, I would just try and focus on certain tracks and the form of those tracks, and maybe make a few eye catchers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's a case of good note making is key. And if you make the right notes in terms of certain days, like you get certain days, certain tracks where nothing's coming from off the pace, nothing at all. And we don't know why that is. It just some days that's what happens, and everything, no matter how fast they go, nothing closes. It happened at Ayr a few years back. There was one meeting at Ayr, and they could go 100 mile an hour. You weren't coming from off at pace, and it just, for whatever reason, could be how they've watered, could be anything, wind, no idea. But yeah, it's worth noting for things like that. That's how you get your edge, because if you get an horse that's finished down the field but fourth and well beaten, but had the worst of the track, like Dave says, that can be a big edge for next time. So note making is probably the most underused, because most people can't be bothered to write anything down, myself included sometimes, which is a bit slack. Good question, Graham. Right, moving on to the best part of the show now. We're coming on to the Cotties, but what I'd like to ask you three: any events we should have looked back on this year as good or bad? Any particular like racing events, or anything memorable or like stick out for any of you this year?
What sticks out for me is Gosden's treatment of Detari.
Yeah,
go with that.
I thought that was absolutely vile business.
Yeah,
and then to sort of take credit for the resurgence when he came back was possibly a new law. I thought the whole business absolutely stank, and then you subsequently found out that he has to be stood down from Stradivarius. Shows the kind of effect it's had on him.
Yeah, Dettori's had his problems in his life, but even to this day, Gosden's saying things like, "Oh, it's all about managing. He's a special talent, but it's all about managing him," and as if he's some kind of nutter. If he might be, I don't know. I mean, I don't know him, but yeah, he's like Gosden's.
Well, enough from what he said publicly on this matter that he's an arsehole.
Yeah, well, that's why he made
hugely patronising, wasn't it?
Yeah,
very patronising. I think Dettori isn't a boy; he's a middle-aged man, and I think Gosden didn't cover himself in glory with that at all.
No, Chris, anything stick out for you this year as being good or bad in 2022?
All bad. I tell you, I think it's been the worst year. I think for punting, I can't think of any highlights, to be honest with you. It's been dreadful. Absolutely dreadful.
If I didn't have a good August, I'd be driving an Amazon van. It literally is like it literally is that, and I'm not kidding.
Breathalyzer on the prowl.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been driving it for about 2 days if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Could you see me on parcels route where it says your parcel is due to arrive at 2:00, then it becomes 3:00, 4:00. They go, the cunt's in pub.
Again,
some Amazon driver I'd be. I don't know. As it stands at the moment, I'm not kidding. I'm hanging in there, and it's like it could 2023 might see the end of me as a full-time punter. It might be the rejuvenation. Yeah, 2022 can get in the bin on all levels for me. It's been a miserable year, and sometimes you look at yourself and you think, are my methods correct? Am I looking at the right things? I'd say a lot of the time, yes, because Chris, you do follow a few things I do, and there has been quite a lot of bad luck this year, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, mainly short head seconds. No, it's been ridiculous. I mean, it's the amount of times when, as I think you said in the week, you're jumping the last 10 clear, but you're looking for something that's coming with a wet sail, and 9 times out of 10 they do you on the line. It's uncanny. Luck. I don't know what that is at the minute, but you expect to get chin, don't you?
Mostly in a driving finish, yeah. Dave, I mean, what's 2022 been like for you? Events, personally, what do you think?
It's been a poor year for racing. There's been no superstars. Bailly getting beaten in his final start, sort of, burst his bubble. It's just been a disappointing year. One of those years, like you say, you've had Frankie Dettori and Gosden. We've had no Oisin Murphy. You don't get much from Ryan Moore, even when he wins. It's just been a grind, I would say, a real grind, and it's ending like a grind. We're not looking like we're going to have a great King George on Boxing Day. It looks a pretty poor lineup to me. There's just nothing massively to look forward to. Even the Cheltenham Festival, they're saying the first day there could be 5 odds-on chances. I mean, is that really what we want at the Cheltenham Festival? Is that what we've got to look forward to? 5 long odds-on chances.
It's always become though Cheltenham now, isn't it? Like the prices are getting shorter and shorter about some of these hot pots, and the level of competitive racing there now it's a farce. In a lot of races, the handicaps fair enough, but the novice events, you don't get many that are that competitive these days. It appears to be an hot pot all the time. Whether it's Duvan or whether it's it's something else. There's always something short. Kind of get that. Before we come on to the COTYs then, which is the award for See You Next Tuesday of the year 2022, let's have a quick look at the King George, because if you look at the Kempton weather this week, it's not good. Plenty of rain down south this week, and I think that there's a horse in here that obviously Long Press is the one I'd go for at the moment. I think that's the right, but they're making that fav now of a Brave Man's Game. I think Long Press is a better horse than Brave Man's Game. Declan Carroll, friend of the show, he says, if anyone's got eyes, how can you say that Brave Man's Game's a better horse than Long Press? I agree. However, I think there's one. If the rains did come, keep your eye out for Royal Pagaille at 25-1. Remember how easy this won the Racing Post Chase? Off 140 a couple of years ago. Since then has progressed and done some ridiculous weight carrying performances, just like Long Press has done it at Newcastle recently, but Royal Pagaille's done it at Haydock. So for me, Royal Pagaille, I think if they get enough juice in the ground and it's soft, at least soft, I think that's a real big player, because the Witches horses are in tremendous form now, and they've waited to get him fit. So I just wonder, 25-1, keep your eyes on the betting on that. And keep your eyes on the weather, because I bet you they run if it's soft ground. I don't think they'll run if it's good ground or anything like that. But if it turns soft, that is a really interesting runner if the mud's flying. Because I don't think Brave Man's Game will not see it out if the ground gets really soft. Because didn't Pumpkin pull Brave Man's Game out last spring at Cheltenham because of the ground? John?
Was it because of the ground, or was it something else?
Well, he said ground, didn't he? He was moaning and going berserk. Pulled 2 or 3 of his runners out that day, didn't he?
Well,
said
that anything really, wasn't he?
No, well, I mean, and Paul Nicholls, he's got a new young bird now, and he's had another kid. I think he's had a new child recently. I don't know. It might be busy changing nappies. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, he's gone all over the place. Dave, any thoughts from you on the King George?
I'd just be laying Brave Man's Game. It's flattered at Wetherby. Got the wide route, just Ahoy Senior ran terribly, didn't it? In that race, I just didn't like the form. Hype horse, too short, even at 2-1, might go off 9-4. Probably be able to take it on about 5-2 on the machine. That'll do me.
I've never been a fan of Hitman either. Have you?
On and off. I mean, a lot of hype around him. Apparently, he's in Kato Starr's old box, and they've obviously always liked him, but. I wouldn't be a massive fan, but I prefer him to Brave Man's Game, as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, Hitman's always been one of them. Travels up like Alan Wicker and then empties out like Hunter Biden, John. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've always thought of it. But I mean, others might not have that view. Right, come on, let's come on to the finale of the show. Let's finish this off in style so we can all watch extra time in the World Cup. It's the COTYs 2022. Right, chaps, we got off to a bad start with this because we sort of kind of put it on social media and it kind of didn't go right. People were getting a bit raucous and a bit nasty. And I think it's wrong of us to put it into punters who we should vote for. I think we should be responsible who we're voting for and carry the can and give it them. So, John, I'm going to come to you. Who's your 2022? See you next Tuesday.
Harrington, BH, no question.
Julie Harrington from John.
Absolutely inert on the job.
And wasn't even in the initial nominations, but a good nomination. Yeah, carry on, John.
Fiddling while Rome burns. Sat in her office, as I say, like a shaved monkey that's been kicked through Laura Ashley's. Absolute waste of salary. No respect for the sport, no love for the sport, no interest in the sport's long-term future, no leadership, and devoid of ideas. Pathetic.
No, I'm amazed she didn't make the original list. I was surprised Endo. I'm surprised Endo never made the original list. And what also surprised me when we did it, the first round of voting, the two that the one I'm going to nominate is Andrew John Rhodes at the Gambling Commission, who simply single-handedly, because it's his decisions and the board's decisions directly, are taking us down the route of prohibition. And he's only one interest, and that's Gambling Harm and Gambling Harm Group. So that's not good, is it? Because that's not a regulator of the sport. That's a prohibitor of the sport. And what surprises me is you'd all rather vote Tony Calvin, which I get, but but Tony Calvin's harmless, right? And Andrew John Rhodes is going to do more damage to your ability to have a bet than what Tony Calvin ever will do. So come on, chaps, let's have some realism here for genuine COTYs. John's come up with one, a good one, Julie Harrington. I'm coming up with Andrew John Rhodes. Chris, I'm coming to you.
Boring, but I agree entirely with John. I think, she should have been exhibiting leadership. We've said this ad nauseum. The woman is a careerist, has no knowledge about the industry. And as we said, in a year or two, she'll move on and head up another quango, and then the merry-go-round continues. Utterly devoid of leadership. And everything she said is always 2 or 3 years too late. We've got to roll our sleeves up now. She should have been doing that 2 years ago, sitting in post. And it is shameful that this individual is still in post. So she would be my nomination.
Good nomination, and we might have got a winner there. But I mean, first of all, why does every person that comes into the BHA role, who's Nick Rust? I mean, they always seem to do very little. Is it because they're powerless to do anything? Realise it after being 3 months in the job, and then think, well, I'll just stay on and get my pension, John. Sorry, cut across, John. I think part of it is down to that, but they seem to recruit the same sort of people, administrators, sort of, quasi civil servants, because they're never going to take a risk and actually get someone that understands the culture and the fabric of the sport. But Nick Russ was a former bookmaker, though, wasn't he?
Well, he was, but ultimately, the sort of character he was, they reinvent themselves, don't they, when they get these roles? So they have the interview, they say the right things, they say, we've got strategic vision, all the right words, stakeholders, building alliances, all that kind of shit. And that kind of impresses HR people. And that's the issue you've got. So all you do is you get the same sort of person in post and they do the same things. There's nothing radical. That's the problem.
Yeah, good nomination. Dave Greenwood.
Lee, I'm going to make it a tie because I'm going to go with you. The thing I really don't like about the Gambling Commission is that they are supposed to help punters, and they don't help punters in any way, shape or form. Punters have messaged them, they don't get replies. I know the producers message them, and it takes months and months and months to get a reply, if you get any reply at all. You see every day on Twitter and on social media, and Carnberry's mentioned it, people struggling to get winnings out, people getting KYC checks at the time withdrawal when the Gambling Commission's own rules say it should all be done before that stage. It's unreal that they won't even make sure that their own rules are being adhered to. And punters are the ones who getting getting it in the neck, basically. And it's ruining the betting experience. Bookmakers used to be known as the noble art. They used to be well thought of. And if you won, you knew 100% you were getting paid out. That's no longer the case. And it's harming the entire industry. And it needs to be stamped out on. So, let's hope that the Gambling Commission either have a new leadership at some point, or the white paper brings some clarity and the bookmakers, make changes, because we can't go on like this. Gambling funds the sport, and without it, the sport will die. And I'm already seeing it slowly dying. Hopefully it can be resuscitated. But if nothing changes, it will just get worse and worse. It will go the same way as greyhound racing, and all the anti-lobbyists that are getting greyhound racing banned in Scotland and Wales, they won't be happy. They will come for horse racing, and horse racing has not shown anything to me to suggest that they can actually fend off the attack that they're under.
On that note, Merry Christmas. Yeah, I'm afraid there's not a lot really to add to that. So we're in the bar stewards then, just like the World Cup final, we have a Desmond. It's a Desmond Tutu for this COTY of 2022. So we're going to give joint winners. Why not? I think the two brilliant nominees.
For 6 months each.
That's it. 6 months each for Julia Harrington, and 6 months for Andrew John Rhodes, who are absolutely despicable at the job.
The trophy is a piss pot, isn't it? So
it is.
6 months and then put it on, and a used piss pot as well.
Yeah. It'll leave some piss in it. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. So hope you enjoyed our little Christmas ditty with the COTYs of 2022 and discussing the topics. Oh, and don't forget, on Tuesday we're appearing on the USO podcast. That is in conjunction with the USO podcast, believe it or not, and that's us, myself and John, getting together with Declan Carroll. We'll all be pissed except John, and it'll be a cracking show, so don't miss that.
Stuff.
Yeah, and we're back on Christmas Eve as well on Saturday for the Boxing Day pod, so don't miss that, because we're in great form tipping, as you can see. Everything going forwards, it should be good fun, so don't miss us this week. We'll appear on Tuesday night on the USO podcast, where you get to see us. The faces for radio are on podcast, me and John, and we're there again, back on the Bar Stewards pod on Christmas Eve. Hope you enjoyed the show. Bye for now.